Hey fam, I wanted to share something with you today, something that I've been preaching on as of late, just a revelation the Lord's been giving to me, but I think it's something that a lot of you are facing, a lot of us are facing on a daily basis. I think it needs to be addressed, and I just want to pour into it today and hopefully just encourage you and give you something that you can take into your week as we deal with things head on. I want to talk to you about facing giants. I want to talk to you about overcoming your giants in your life. Allie, what is a giant? What does a giant look like in my life? A giant is a thing, a place, a person, a situation. It could be at your job. It could be someone in your family. It could be a relationship. It could be a fear, it could be anxiety, it could be an addiction, it could be anything in your life that has paralyzed you to the point where you feel like you don't have control, where you can't say anything, you can't do anything, you can't make a move. You're terrified. It freezes you, it puts you in a place of intimidation. Giants don't go away. They consistently come at you, and they make you feel like you can't do anything about this thing. I want to talk to you about David and Goliath. Something that the Lord was just showing me. I think that we all have seasons of life where we got to face giants. You have seasons in life where it's time to deal, right? And I think that sometimes we know that we got to deal, but we don't know how. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know what that means. And so I just went into a time of study with the Lord, and he just began giving me revelation on this particular story. I want to share it with you. So David and Goliath, right? Saul at that time was the king. Saul was terrified. It says Saul and all of the people under him were terrified of Goliath. Goliath was a big dude. He was 9 feet 6 inches tall. That's a big man. So he was impressive. He was impressive in stature. He was impressive in height, weight, speed. He was from the land of Gath, literally meaning the land of giants. He was their top-notch guy, right? He was the best of the best from the land of Gath. So he was the superstar of giants. And Goliath wanted to fight Israel. It was time, the war came on, it was time to fight Israel. Well, Saul, the king, was terrified. He was terrified of Goliath. He ran from him. It says multiple times in the story in 1 Samuel that he was terrified, that he ran away in fear, that all the people ran in fear. The men, the warriors ran in fear from this giant. Every time Goliath would take a step toward them, they would take 10 steps back away from him, right? They were terrified of him. So then David comes, and David's a little bit, he's kind of like me. He's a little feisty, and if something's challenging him, he wants to know what it is because he's going to deal with it, and he's going to take it head on. So David, who is not a big man, it even says in the Bible that Saul was a large man. He was big. He wasn't a giant, but he was a big man. Well, David comes, and he says, "Who is this Philistine that defies the living God?" And then he even says, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that defies the power of the living God?" Now, what was interesting about David is that he immediately went to something very, very specific. He said, "This uncircumcised Philistine." Now, why is that important, Allie? Why was it imperative that David made sure to make note of the fact that Goliath was uncircumcised? Well, in that day and that time, it was custom that circumcision symbolized you were in the covenant of God. The males were circumcised so that from each male, they would pass down the covenant to each generation through circumcision. So David immediately recognized that this giant that was challenging them, that was defying the living God, that had already delivered into David's hand the lion and the bear, he knew that this giant was not part of the covenant of God. See, David was unimpressed by Goliath. Now, Goliath in his natural state with natural vision was impressive, but David didn't look with natural vision. He looked upon this giant with spiritual vision. He did something that not many of us do with our own giants. He looked through spiritual vision, and he understood that Goliath was not part of the covenant of God. That means brother man did not have divine help on his side. It meant he's in trouble. David was part of the circumcision. David had divine help. David knew that the God that delivered the lion and the bear would surely deliver this giant into his hand as well. So, people of God, what I want to tell you is this. Listen, we cannot look at our giants in our life, at that fear, that anxiety, that job, that person, that relationship, that circumstance, whatever it is, that addiction, You got to begin to look through that thing through spiritual vision. Has that thing been divinely ordained to be doing what it's doing to you? If it hasn't, you can take authority over it. Listen, we can't be impressed by size, weight, and speed, size, height, and speed. We can't be impressed by the natural. We must begin to look through the spiritual. You need to begin to look at your giants through spiritual vision. David then proceeded, at the end of the story, it says that he had a slingshot and he picked up 5 stones, but it only took him 1. Why? Because he understood it's not about the size of the giant. It's about where you hit it. He understood it wasn't about the size of the man in front of him. He knew exactly where to hit him to take him down. Listen to me. You cannot be intimidated by the size of your giant. And the other thing was David belonged to God. David had relationship, intimacy with God. Listen, the closer you are to God, the smaller your giant becomes. The further away you are from God, the bigger your giant will become. You got to walk with God. You got to get right with God. You got to have intimacy with God. You got to see through spiritual eyes at the things coming at you and ask, does this thing have God's permission to be destroying my life? Listen, God does not send what's evil. God only sends what's good, but we must go to him. We must surrender our own ability, our own vision, our own ability to see and say, God, what do you want me to see? How do you want me to view this giant in my life? Okay. We got to be a people that see with spiritual vision and then take authority over those giants in your life. Okay. I love you guys so much. I'm always praying for you. I'm going to talk to you soon. Bye.